call and ask him your questions about lawns and gardens and trees and flowers and all of those things. It's been wet. It's been really, really wet. People have been waiting for what they say is in the forecast for next week.
That's right. There's going to be a lot of things happening next week, aren't there?
Are you hearing that? Well, I'll tell you what. Before we get to my question, let's field this caller's question. Good morning.
Good morning. Bob, hey, this is Greg, and believe it or not, this isn't a Christmas tree question.
I can't believe it.
When do you quit cutting your asparagus? When do you do that? When do you decide to?
Whenever you get tired eating it.
Is that when you do that?
So
That's been a debate at home. That's why I'm wondering.
Yeah. Oh, boy, here we go. The debates at home. All right. On an established planting, you can keep cutting it until eventually it'll probably get ahead of you. But you can keep cutting it for several weeks, at least, 3 to 4 weeks. Then what's going to happen is we want to let it mature, let the stems grow so that they leaf out, and we've got the foliage there for the summer.
Okay. So just cut it about 3 or 4 weeks, and then that's it.
Yeah, and that's usually, especially if you're aggressively doing, if you're completely cutting everything off that comes up and using that, and not letting any of the stems come up and then open up into foliage, we get to a point where we'll start and stress the plant if we don't let the fronds come up and grow. On a new, and then we'll follow up on a new planting. Usually, like if you had planted it last year, or say you're going to plant this year, we usually you plant a crown, and that's another plant that's a perennial plant. So asparagus is perennial. It'll last for decades if it's taken care of. So we want to get the soil prepared properly ahead of planting this crop. So it's not an annual crop where if we mess up or just throw it in there and grow it and it doesn't do well this year, we can start over again next year. But on asparagus, you want to prepare that. Usually, a lot of times we'll plant them in a row, and within that row, it's good to get soil tested first, and probably add some organic matter. In most cases, our soils need organic matter, so whether we add compost or composted manure, and work that into the soil, and then get everything ready to go, the nutrients that are needed added, pH, get that where it needs to be, and then we're ready to plant. So that first year we want to just let it grow. It won't get a lot of growth on it from those crowns, but it'll get started. And then the second year you can start to take a little bit off it, maybe for a week. And then the third year, 2 weeks, and the fourth year, 3 weeks. And then by that time, that plant should be well established, and we're going to do minimal. We can do a full harvest season off of that without causing any problem to the plant.
Okay.
So that's about how that works on that crop.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go prune a tree today, will you?
I'll do that.
I think he'd rather shear.
Yeah, there you go. That could be too. That could be too. 479-1160 or 349-WCCS, the telephone numbers to call. Okay.
Yeah, those perennial crops, those are ones we really want to prepare for, make sure we have everything in order before we plant them so that we can provide the best environment for them.
Yeah.
Since we're going to have them in the ground for multiple years.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Very
good.
Well.
How are you?
I'm good. I got a question for you about the frost we got earlier this week. We had 2 pretty hard frosts 2 days in a row, and I have apple trees, but the apples were past the blossom stage, and I just wondered if that frost is going to hurt them since they've already gone to the small fruit stage, and they're past the blossom stage.
Good question.
That is a good question. And yes, those small fruit can be damaged. So depending on the temperatures they were exposed to and the length of time that they were exposed to those low temperatures will determine whether they were affected or not. Now, how can you tell? And on the same tree, you could have some fruit that were frosted a little bit and some that weren't, depending on the size of the tree and the height of the tree and where everything's located. But yes, those small fruit can get some frost damage. Sometimes that'll form we'll call them frost rings, but you might be able to look at the fruit and there might be these little rings that you'll see on the surface where the frost damaged them. You can also cut the fruit open. Just take a sharp knife and slice through it and see what the color is in there. It should be nice and light color and green. If there's any darker areas, then that probably is where there was some frost damage, cold damage to that fruit.
I was wondering about that. I was hoping that it just affects the flowers, but that doesn't sound like good news.
No, but again, it'll vary. Don't get, let it ride out. We'll see we don't want to go taking all that fruit off. We're also at that time frame with those small fruit where, depending on how well pollination was and how many fruits you have developing, this is the time when people are thinning their apples. So there are sprays that you can put on that will chemically help you thin the fruit load. Our weather patterns that we've had the last couple of weeks have not been very, very good conditions for people to try to thin the fruit off the tree, just because it's been cold and cloudy and rainy. So they're tending to hang on there. The plants aren't growing much at the moment. Next week, that's all going to probably change significantly. Those fruit that are damaged may also just kind of stay that size too. If they're damaged enough, they'll kind of turn darker color and they won't continue to start to expand and grow.
Okay, maybe it's a natural thinner there.
Yes. So if pollination was really good and you have a super heavy crop load, you're going to have to thin anyway. This can help get that done. Now, it doesn't always thin off the fruit that you want to have thinned off. Because we've got, on some varieties we have that, what they call the king bloom. So it's the blossom that comes up in the middle, and then you have fruit, flowers, and then fruit below that all around it. And a lot of varieties are like that. And so that king bloom, that's the one, that flower comes out first before the rest of the flowers. So it's always developmentally a little ahead of the rest of them. We like to keep that one, and then a couple of the others on there. But usually, if you have 8 or 10 fruit developing, they'll not all develop. And if you leave too many on there, then all the fruit will be small. So usually we need to thin, and whether we chemically do that or whether we do that by hand, it usually needs to be done in order to get the best size fruit and the best quality fruit in any given year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. It is Indiana in the Morning. He's Bob Pollock. So
you're riveted by that, aren't you?
That's one word for it. There are others. Well, in the vein of that discussion, though, with all of the frost damage that was done, we think of flowers and shrubs and things of that nature. And, my yews around the house, they had these nice, soft, green blooms on them, and it was getting to the point where I was going to have to trim them. And now I'm going to trim them, but they're all brown because they all got frosted out.
Yes.
And I don't mind that because I was going to cut them off anyway.
That helps you out, actually.
But people in this area who are trying to raise more delicate things like, I'm thinking of peach trees right now, and peach blossoms getting damaged. And there we had a call about apples. Frost this late in the year can really, really be a danger, can it?
Yes, in combination with the stage of growth. Mm-hmm. And so the two good examples there this year where we had accelerated growth, things came out sooner, started to grow developmentally at that stage, and then we get that weather pattern that comes in and gives us a boom there.
Let's see if we can do this one really quick because we're almost out of time. Good morning.
Same on the frosting. How about like eastern redbud? Or I noticed a lot of leaves are burnt on it. What will it do for coming years? Just retard it a little for this coming year?
Yeah. Now you may get some other foliage coming out if you have the leaves. Say you lose a whole leaf, there'll probably be some other buds along the branch that it will open up and replace that.
Okay. Just take your time and just see what it does.
Yes.
Okay.
He doesn't need to take off the old stuff that got frosted out. It'll go off on its own.
Yeah, let it alone for now. If, say, only part of a leaf goes, that'll turn brown and that'll drop off on its own. The leaf will look ragged, of course, but at least you'll still have part of a leaf there. And then you may also get some other foliage to come out a little later on to replace that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, AM 1160 WCCS, 101.1 FM. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
The best way to fight breast cancer